Talking about the trade deadline, the NBA trade deadline, it came, it passed, and the internet is split, man. And so, chat family, I want to know how you guys feel about it. Everything shook out. I kind of wish that they had an opportunity to take a flyer on a KJ Martin, but he was packaged as a part of a deal with Josh Richardson and a 2028 second round pick to acquire Dennis Schroder, Lindy Waters, who is from played with Cade in college, and 2 second-round picks at the trade deadline without having to give up anything, except for just their cap space. That's it. So there was this aspect of what we wanted the Pistons to do as fans, go out there and get Cade the number 2. And they could have done that, but it would have cost you either a young player or it could have mortgaged years on your cap space. You know, they could have done it without giving up a young player, but now you're talking about taking on probably some pretty bad contracts that you don't really want to deal with. But for me personally, what was the baseline? We were consistent. Go and get that secondary, that backup facilitator, especially with Jaden Ivey out. We were saying this before Jaden Ivey went down. We knew that we needed one more. And I do believe that there is a lot of people who this deal helps overall, the Pistons, JB Bickerstaff. You're talking about having another facilitator out there on the court it can be another one of those coaches on the court. You look at Cade Cunningham, you know he's one of those coaches on the court. And now you have another one of those facilitators who can get you some assists, who is very heady, who really doesn't waste a lot of time. He's one of those guys that can shoot a couple moves and get to his spots a lot better than we've even seen from a guy like a Marcus Sasser, who I believe is still learning the NBA. But Flannel Sam, I just want your initial reaction to this trade overall and your perspective on if they improved or not.
My initial reaction is that I should have seen this one coming, and I'm kind of kicking myself for not doing so. What this tells me, this getting a guy like Dennis Schroder and everything that comes along with him, is that the Pistons believe in Jaden Ivey. They are using Dennis Schroder as a potential stopgap till next year, where Dennis Schroder's contract will be a free agent. He's only $13 million this year. What it does is it gives Cade Cunningham that secondary facilitator and ball handler this year, a guy who, honestly, with Brooklyn, I know with Golden State he wasn't very good, but with Brooklyn he was averaging 18 points and 7 assists on 45, 39, 89 splits. This guy has played a lot of games in the NBA, has been a guy who's going to give you about 15, not the best shooter, about 5 assists, and no matter what his role in on the Pistons, whether it's in the starting lineup or probably more likely off the bench, this is exactly what they need. But it also doesn't impact anything. They got him, Lindy Waters, and 2 second-round picks for absolutely nothing. And then next year, if they just want to let it ride with Cade and Jaden Ivey, who were showing before Ivey got hurt that they were working together, you saw how well that Ivey was playing, then that's what they're going to do. If they want to re-sign Dennis Schroder, they can do that. They have a guy who can fill a lot of needs this year, but they still have so much flexibility going into the offseason. So it was the perfect move. It's the move that I never called for, but I should have all along, and I'm kicking myself for it. But there's a reason why Trajan Langdon is the GM and not old Flannel Sam.
Yeah, and it's the way that he worked the cap space, including when he first initially traded for KJ Martin and stashing him in what they called effectively saying, oh, we're probably going to use one of our exceptions to be able to acquire him. And they put the deal on hold while it still allowed him to work through different things. There were so many wild reports coming in, and I sent you guys a text. We got word that it was going to be Schroder. But there was somebody who got the source first. That is Omari Sankofa of the Detroit Free Press, who was able to break that. And you know what? As soon as it hit, same thing. I was same thing. I was just sitting there and I showed you guys the text chain and everything. It's just like, you know what, man? This was a move that I didn't think they were going to be able to do. And I think that's why I didn't think of it. I thought Schroder was going to be one of those guys that was going to wind up on a championship tier contender or one of those top 4 type seed contenders. I didn't think he was going to wind up on the Pistons radar at all. And that's why I believe that their market was going to be one that was reduced to realistically taking a swing or taking a shot at maybe a forward or one of the more pricier 1s or 2s out there that were available on the market. And that's where, your Levines and these types of players pop up. But this one was very savvy. The way that he utilized the cap space, the way that he got these assets together. And the Lindy Waters one, that was the guy who was holding the ball on the bench from the Warriors when Stu was trying to walk up and rip it away from him. That's Lindy Waters. So that's the last time that you guys would have seen him outside of trying to look up who he is since this trade has gone down. But overall, yeah, this is a good move. And I don't scoff at the 35% on three for Dennis Schroder either, as well as the 5 assists. I'm hoping that on this team, he doesn't feel the necessity to have to be that scorer first and can focus more on facilitating and let the offense come his way. And that's where I do believe having Sasser on, as well as Beasley, as well as hopefully Fontecchio. I'm hoping that these guys can be reliable outlets around that perimeter for him as three-point shooters.
I was going to say, if I were JB Bickerstaff, and I suspect that he's going to do this, I want Dennis Schroder on the bench. I want him and Malik Beasley on that bench unit, making your bench so much stronger. And then imagine what a Dennis Schroder as a facilitator, as a much better facilitator than a Marcus Sasser, could maybe even unlock Fontecchio a little bit. Maybe you can't get much worse. Maybe get Ron Holland some more easy looks as well. Only good can happen from this because they literally gave up nothing and they basically got exactly what they needed. I'll tell you what, that winning 20 games before the end of the year is a lot more likely with Dennis Schroder than without. I will just say that. And that's one of the things that I took into consideration when I said that they would, because I figured that they would make a move like this. I didn't expect it to be this, but for flexibility, for the future of the young guys, this was the perfect move. You won't be seeing Jaden Ivey for the rest of the year unless he heals at a super fast rate. But you don't have to. You got somebody who can provide a little bit less than what he does, but just as that stopgap.
Yeah, I will give that update as well. Pistons PR hit us up with the update on Jaden Ivey. He is in a walking boot. He is walking. Some of you guys might have seen some of the videos. He's walking in the pool. He's able to bear weight on that leg as well. He's going to be reevaluated in 4 weeks as he goes through now 4 weeks of rehab. So it does give him a shot. I know that there's some people that are in the camp of just rest up and come back next year, King, as we get a little bit closer to probably this Pistons team taking that next step up. When you have a player of the caliber of Koolaid Cunningham and the talent that we saw Jaden Ivey, and we wish him well on his rehab and recovery and hope that he comes back just the same way that we remember him. But when you have a player like Koolaid Cunningham and you see the growth that these young players are making under JB Bickerstaff, that's when you have the opportunity to accelerate your rebuild. The same way that we saw the Orlando Magic and the Houston Rockets and the Cleveland Cavaliers all do in recent seasons. And that's where, this move, you said it best, it allows them to be able to kind of keep that flexibility, bring somebody in who's going to absolutely play a role. He's coming in seemingly with no ego, just coming in to do the job. And that's what we've noticed. With Dennis Schroder, he's been one of those guys over the last 2-3 years of covering the Pistons that when he comes to LCA, he's been one of those guys that's hurt us. Let me just put it that way to some regard. So I'm looking forward to what this is going to be. KG, what up, though, brother?
Oh, man, I think Trajan cooked with this one. I don't really see how people cannot like this deal. And listen, I got to admit, some of the memes about how many times Dennis Schroder got traded on X, they were hilarious, okay? I got to give y'all that. But ultimately, this is what I was trying to iterate to the audience over the last couple weeks. The Pistons were probably not going to make that big move that everybody wanted. They were going to prioritize draft capital, in which they did that. They went and got 2 second-round picks, which I know a lot of y'all don't think is worth a damn, but I'm telling y'all, in the offseason, when you're trying to load up and make a deal for a better player, those second-round picks can come in handy.
Or even a first-round pick.
Or even that,
The Wizards just got a first-round pick at the trade deadline for 4 seconds.
Oh, there you go. So, but I fully believe in what Trajan is trying to do with this team. And you got a player that's averaging, around 15 points a game, 6 assists. He's averaging 6 assists a game, and you got him for free, and he comes off the books at the end of the year. And if he plays well enough, you can make a decision on him. I don't think this trade deadline could have went any better for what was available and for what Trajan was able to go out and do. And he filled a need that we all said that this team had for damn near months now. We all knew they needed a backup facilitator, and he's a player that, he's got a little edge to him. I feel like he fits this Detroit culture pretty good, and he is capable of going out there on some nights and and giving you some pretty good games. Yeah. So I'm not mad at this move at all, man. I think this is a great fit. This will absolutely help them get into the playoffs, and this is going to take so much pressure off of Cade Cunningham and his usage rate, man. So
because I got a question for you guys. It's interesting you just said that. Who is the Pistons' second best pick and roll guard? And this is eye test stuff to you, because when you think about it, is when you start to go, oh my gosh, when Cade don't got the ball in his hands,
it's bad.
Yeah, Sasser, we know he's been improving, but think about that. That's when it becomes guys like Tim Hardaway and Malik Beasley who you don't want in those situations.
No, you don't.
You don't. This is where like you bring in you're bringing in a guy who can actually run the pick and roll for you. You can actually do sets with Cade Cunningham off ball, which will drop his usage, allow this man to get a breather on the court as well. You know, these are the types of things that, you know, when you make a move like this, he's instantly sliding in right now, and he is your second best facilitator, your second best pick and roll guard.
Yes.
Like, think about that.
And he can score.
And he can score. He can get into the lane.
Right.
Like,
say what you want about 35%. Is it great? No, but he can hit it. If he's open, he can hit it. That's all you can ask for.
And I said at the beginning, that man, and DNCENT alluded to it in the chat as well, he was cooking in Brooklyn. He was going off. I know Steph fans don't like him right now, and rightfully so. He wasn't good in Brooklyn, but we gotta get that out of our minds. Saquon, he's on the ESPN there, right there. Dennis Schroder can play, and he's exactly what they need. And what I've noticed in these last 4 Pistons games on this homestand, in which they are 2-2, unfortunately, in the game against Dallas, one of the things, other than Ron Holland being a spark plug in the fourth quarter, that really got the Pistons to take this one home was the fact that Marcus Sasser actually made some plays, actually had a couple of floaters in the lane and had some assists. In the Bulls game, Marcus Sasser had 5 assists. My point with this is that Marcus Sasser cannot do that consistently. He hasn't done that in the last couple of games. What you need in a Dennis Schroder is somebody who can give that relief for Cade and be that secondary facilitator consistently, could make a couple of more plays against Cleveland or against Atlanta. Hell, maybe they win 1 or 2 of those games if Dennis Schroder is there. I think they probably do. They at least win 1 of their last 2 games if they have a Dennis Schroder there.
Because it's no slight at a Marcus Sasser, who is a young player who's still learning. I believe that they need more players like Dennis Schroder on this team.
Absolutely.
You got to have those types of vet guards who have, you know what, put in some time in this league and have had success, and they're still having success. Wasn't that part of the reason why they went out and they got guys like Tim Hardaway Jr. and Malik Beasley in the first place?
Yeah.
And think about it. Who was expecting Malik Beasley to come here and be the flamethrower that he was? What we knew was this. He proved to be more than serviceable, which is what Dennis Schroder has continued to do. And now he's getting opportunity on his Detroit Pistons team. And, you know, he's going to say this stuff for the press. He's going to put this out there on social media. I'm coming here to help them make the playoffs. But guess what? He actually is doing that. This isn't a Pistons team that's sitting on the outside looking in. This is a Pistons team that's sitting in 7th place right now with an opportunity now to, as we talked about, hey, can they be one of those teams that's better than, can they pass this? You know what? I like the job that Miami did, but I believe that getting that second facilitator, and give it some time. Don't look for it to just pop in the first game he's there, or maybe it will. Give it some time. That second facilitator makes me a lot more comfortable in contrast to the moves that the Miami Heat made to get Wiggins.
Well, yeah, the Miami Heat, as we talked about, I like the Wiggins move. I think that they're going to be a factor, at least when it comes to avoiding the play-in and making the playoffs. They're going to be battling teams like the Pistons for that. The Pistons are going to be battling teams like the Orlando Magic for that. They needed to, it was a bit of an arms race, at least for this year, and the Pistons and Trajan Langdon, they got themselves their arm, and Dennis Schroder, which is exactly what they need. It wasn't, I think that if they would have just stood pat, which I wouldn't have been furious at, but I would have been a little disappointed at, that the danger of them slipping to the play-in was 100% real. With Dennis Schroder, I'm looking at, it's got to be 6 seed or above, and I think that they're fully capable of doing that and passing a team like the Heat.
It's the perfect move, bro. You plan for the now, and you plan for the future as well. Like, this was like as good as you could have came out of this trade deadline.
And you got to think about it too. It's not just a facilitation. It's not just a pick and roll. But we know this. If he goes on a heater, you just let him go. And he's one of those guys that can get on those heaters. Just kind of look at his last like 30, 40 games played, and you'll see, yes, there's games where it's probably sub 10. There's games where it's plus 20, getting into that 30. But a lot of those games are hitting you at about 14, 15, 16, 17, 13, which is about his average. So that's where I'm like, you know what? This is a decent move. If he's on a heater when K's sitting down, you know what? K can get a little bit more rest. And it's a situation where he's going to have space.
Yeah.
Because he's going to be able to play with shooters. I'm hoping that a player like Simone Fontecchio, who is still kind of coming back from that foot surgery that he had that caused him to miss some time last year, that is what I'm hearing he's been dealing with. And I'm hoping that as he gets more comfortable, gets in game shape, gets more rhythm and such, and that foot starts feeling much better, that provides another shooter. Because Simone Fontecchio being consistent, and Schroder coming to this team could be like adding a couple new players after the All-Star break.
But what did they do, though? They improved the weakest unit on this team, which was the bench unit. And now you're looking at Schroder, you're looking at, still Malik Beasley probably coming off the bench with a Ron Holland and Fontecchio. I think that's well improved over what you had so far. And then you can still utilize Marcus Sasser as a relief scorer if you need him. And I feel like he's improved in the time he was able to hold down this role. So I think it's a win-win all across the board.
Yes, because you mentioned Ron Holland, whose usage rate have we seen with the ball in his hands a little too high?
Yeah.
Ron Holland now, but who's three-point shooting over like some time now. The last 10, 15, 20 games, he's shooting 36% from behind the arc. Now, if you have a facilitator, you can take the ball out of his hands and allow him to be able to attack off of the swing pass, whether it's getting your triple threat. Because we know this. You swing the ball the right way to Ron Holland on the corner three, and he can dunk on your head. So it's like, I'm excited about this move can be. I don't want to blow this out of way out of proportion, but this is a guy who's averaging about 15 and 5.8 assists on 36% from the field. I think about that.
Yeah,
that's a move. That's a move for me, honestly.
It shows me they serious about competing this year. Like they really want to make sure that they get into the playoffs and maybe even make some noise.
Well, and remember this, and this was even when Jaden Ivey was playing. I made a little bit of a joke earlier in the season, at least when it came to bench scoring, how kind of paraphrase the whole "I'm David Ruffin and these are the Temptations." I'm Malik Beasley and this is the bench.
Right.
Now you've got yourself a real bench with some scoring, and of course we've seen Ron Holland improve. And Marcus Sasser can do a little bit more of what he is designed to, not be your second point guard, but be a bit of a combo guard. Hopefully Fontecchio can make some improvements with a better backup facilitator. This is a win-win, win-win-win, and it should be treated as such by all. Even if it wasn't the splash that maybe you wanted Trajan to make. I don't know if Trajan Langdon had the arsenal to be able to go and make a move quite like that. This was the best that he could do under these circumstances, and it cost the Pistons absolutely. They got Dennis Schroder for nothing.
There
nothing.
were moves he could have done, and that's what makes me tip my head a little bit like, what you got on the way? Because the move he made, like we've all said, and you, Flannel and KG have kind of portrayed well, is this fact that contract expires at the end of this season.
Yes.
Look at the cap space that they're going to have.
I see what you did.
Multiple second round picks, the cap space, some really good young assets. They're going to be one of the best teams to be able to facilitate or do something with come draft time and offseason.
Which is why I am still kicking myself for not advocating for Dennis Schroder really at all, because obviously we know he's not a perfect player, and we know recency bias is not good in Golden State. He's had some stretches of inefficiency from the three throughout his career, but it's the fact that his contract comes off the books. They have so much cap space, the Pistons, and the flexibility is still there. Imagine Cade Cunningham with the help.